Welcome into Pittsburgh Steelers Talk. I am Tom Downey. Some trade candidates coming up on today's show. Before we get there, though, we will be doing a future Steelers mailbag this week/weekend. Get your questions in now, though. Use hashtag HereWeGo in the comments with your trade idea, question, theory, whatever you want it to be, so we can find it easier and feature you on our mailbag this week. Once again, this is Pittsburgh Steelers Talk. I am Tom Downey. The trade deadline is just around the corner, a week away to be exact. And interestingly enough, ESPN has named the Steelers as one of 6 teams that should blow it up this season and enter, we can call it a rebuild, a reset, a retooling. It's selling at the deadline. We'll break down some potential trade chips, but first, ESPN pitch. Quote, the Pittsburgh Steelers aren't often the type of team to blow things up. Then again, they aren't generally 2-5 either. The Steelers have been one of the most consistent franchises in the league for multiple decades, so it isn't often we see them in this kind of hole, but they could be in for a rare rebuild. They're arguably already in the middle of one with rookie quarterback Kenny Pickett taking over the offense. However, it wouldn't hurt to continue to load up on draft picks to build around him. I don't disagree with this argument from ESPN. At 2-5, you're not out of it. We've seen Mike Tomlin make you-know-what into lemonade in the past. So I think they have the opportunity to make a little run here down the stretch as the schedule gets a little bit easier. But I do think the overarching theme here should be the future and not just go all in right now because you're not in a position to go all in at this moment. You want to see what Kenny Pickett can do in year one. You want to add future assets because that's when you're going to be your most competitive. That is smart team building. Now, it's not something, as ESPN points out, Pittsburgh's seen in a while. They've consistently been a playoff contender pretty much every year with Mike Tomlin. But at some point, every NFL team has to rebuild. And frankly, you'd rather rebuild for a year or two than get caught going 6 wins, 7 wins, 8 wins, 9 wins in your good years and be caught in the dreaded middle ground and purgatory in the NFL. So you don't have to go full sell fire mode if you don't want to. You don't have to sell off every valuable asset. But I think there are some players, not Kenny Pickett, of course, who could fit a potential trade candidate situation. So I want to know from you guys, safe space to be honest with me, do you think the Steelers should sell at the deadline? If you do, head down to the pinned comment and type in sell. Let's see how many of you want to be sellers this year at the trade deadline. Coming up right now, the top 5 Steelers trade chips. 5 different names. Make sure you watch to the end. Also, do not attack me personally. Number 1 is quarterback Mason Rudolph. I remember when we were doing mailbags in the offseason, multiple questions, every single mailbag call. Mason Rudolph trade? Still checks out. I think Trubisky and Rudolph fit in this category, and ESPN feels the exact same way. Mitchell Trubisky and Mason Rudolph would also make sense as trade chips. The team has handed the starting quarterback job over to Pickett, and either would be a solid backup plan for any team that might not have confidence in its number 2 QB. Trubisky did show pretty good against the Bucs, but once you make the move to Pickett, he's your guy this year. You cannot go back to Trubisky or start Mason barring injury. Some quarterback-needy teams, the Patriots, if they chop one of Mac Jones or Bailey Zappe, or if Jones gets hurt again, right? The Niners are a bit thin behind Jimmy Garoppolo. It's Brock Purdy. The Colts have benched Matt Ryan for Sam Ehlinger. I'm not the biggest Trubisky or Mason Rudolph fan, mind you, but I think they're better than Sam Ehlinger. The Rams are also thin behind Matthew Stafford, who I'm unconvinced is actually 100% this year. Next up, Chase Claypool. We all knew he was going to be on here, right? There was a very interesting quote from ESPN, by the way, we'll get to here in a little bit. But Claypool is a logical trade candidate because he's been mentioned so many times by different media outlets and reports and all that stuff that the Packers have interest, the Titans, whatever. There's a lot of buzz on Chase Claypool. Here's where things get, I'm going to say curious is my word today, from ESPN. Reports have already surfaced that receiver Chase Claypool could be on the trade block. Bill Huber of Sports Illustrated reported that the Steelers are open for business, but would expect a trade package along the lines of what Christian McCaffrey, or what the Panthers got for dealing Christian McCaffrey to the 49ers, which included a second, third, and fourth round pick this year and a fifth round pick in 2024. So the Steelers want a 2, a 3, a 4, and a future 5. Okay. Producer Jeremy in my ear says he wants a date with Jennifer Lawrence. I think that's equally reasonable. Like, I don't know any NFL team that would move this much for Chase Claypool. I think he's got upside. I think he's a good football player. 4 picks? And 2 of them at minimum will be top 100 selections? I do that in a heartbeat. I say yes. I would do this trade. I want to hear from you guys. Would you do this trade? Yes or no? In a heartbeat. Where do I sign? Like, I like Claypool. That's a 2, a 3, a 4, and a 5. Those are potentially 4 starters, or at least 2 starters, and nice bench players for you for your number 3 receiver? Maybe number 4 long-term if Calvin Austin ever gets healthy? Like, I would do that. The Steelers would do that. I don't think any NFL team would do that, though. Now, what you should do is go get a terrible towel if you don't own one already. I question if you're a Steelers fan and you don't own a terrible towel, because that's like the iconic fan piece for Pittsburgh Steelers. So grab one today. Chatsports.com/terrible towel. Take you over to the Fanatic site, right in there, the different variations. I'm a fan of the original one because that's just the one I had when I lived in Pittsburgh growing up. Chatsports.com/terrible towel. That link is in the comment section and the description. Click, shop, and buy yours today. Let's go to defense. Larry Ogunjobi next up here. This one is pretty logical to me. You paid him a lot of money, and he hasn't quite been the same guy you were hoping. Not bad, mind you, but the quarterback hits don't match the sack production, which I think is the red flag, but also indicative of a guy who should have more success down the stretch. There was interest in Ogunjobi before that injury kind of ruined his deal with the Chicago Bears. I think there should still be trade interest. Not the biggest return back. I think maybe you're going to get a day 3 pick, but if you get a 4th for a guy on a 1-year deal, yeah, you eat some dead money, but, you paid for a draft pick, right? That's fine. That's a very much a very classic, I'll call it an NBA move. That's what I'll call it, an NBA move. Now, if a trade happens, we will cover it for you right here on Pittsburgh Steelers Talk. Hit that big red button and subscribe at youtube.com/SteelersTV. You're watching on YouTube, hit the red button, or if you're on the most recent update of YouTube, it's actually a black and white button now. So either way, click it and make sure those notifications are set to all. Cam Sutton, the cornerback, is next up here. Teams always need corners. And if you're going to be like, you know what, we're not going to be good this year, Sutton is someone I think you can shop. I've always liked him. I liked him a lot coming out of Tennessee, and he's done a good job in Pittsburgh. Not always a impact player in terms of high-end impact, but he's good. He's not a number 1, maybe a number 2, but he's at least a 3. And I know a lot of contenders out there that don't have a number 3 corner. So I think Sutton is a valid option, even though that one would hurt me a little bit because I do like him so much. All right. Before I show you the last trade chip, and this is getting a little bit out there, you have to promise me you won't get mad. So no being mad at me in the comment section. That's my only request here. Before we show you trade chip number 5, don't get mad. Watch all the way through, and then you won't be mad at me. It's TJ Watt, okay? Now, you said, and you verbally agreed in written text, or at least I assumed, that you wouldn't get mad at me. So allow me to explain, because for the record, I'm not trading TJ Watt, but I just want to go through it as an example and whatever there. If you actually wanted to blow everything up, which I don't think you should, if you wanted to, trading TJ Watt would get you an unbelievably high amount of draft capital back and or young players back. TJ Watt is one of the best defensive players in the entire NFL. The pass rusher list is him, like a Myles Garrett, a Micah Parsons, and Aaron Donald as an interior guy. That's the pass rusher list, right? A team allegedly offered 2 first-round picks for Brian Burns of the Carolina Panthers. TJ Watt, and I like Brian Burns, TJ Watt's worth at least double what Brian Burns is. Yeah, obviously we saw Jalen Ramsey go for 2 firsts, but he needed a new contract. Watt does not. I think 2 firsts and a hell of a lot more. You're talking 2 firsts, 2 seconds, another first, a young player. Like, that is a blockbuster NBA-style trade. So if you really wanted to go full-on fire sale rebuild mode, trading TJ Watt is how you would accomplish that. With that said, I would not, because I don't think your rebuild is longer than 2 years. TJ Watt's still in his prime at that point. So I wanted to explore the idea, lay it out, but I'm not on board. So this, if you type in you wouldn't consider it, it's not being mad at me. This is where you can say you don't like the idea. Would you ever consider trading TJ Watt this year? C for consider, W for wouldn't. No one get mad at each other in the comments, but head down there, C or W.